So you've moved to Australia and you want a tax file number. Otherwise you've heard that they could charge you nearly 50% in tax. I wonder what happens to all that money if you don't actually get a tax file number. Do they give it back to you? Probably not. So in this video I'm going to share you what a tax file number actually is and how you get one. Tax file numbers are essentially a part of your identity that's split down into 9 digits, and it's a way for the ATO to sort out your tax and your superannuation. Everyone needs one, it's a part of life, so just kind of get one. If you don't have one, like I said, they're going to withhold a load of tax, and if you're a resident, you also might not be able to qualify for some important government services. I literally don't know right now why you wouldn't want a tax file number. So how do you get one? It's actually pretty easy. You just go on the website and fill out a form. It takes a few minutes, or if you're anti-computers, there is an old paper one as well. Can you do this before you actually move to Australia? No, and you'll find out in a second. So when applying for your tax file number, one of the first questions they're going to ask you is if you've ever had one before. If it's your first working holiday visa, then no, you haven't had one. But if you had a working holiday visa when you were in your 20s and you had a tax file number, it probably pays just to have the old one back again. If that is the case, then they're going to ask you some old details and you just fill it in. One of the next questions they're going to ask you is, why do you actually need a tax file number? And as we've already suggested, you kind of need one just because you don't want to pay a load of tax. But the easiest answer for this one is just to give to your employer, because they're going to ask you for a tax file number as well. And they're the ones that are going to dob you in and withhold your tax if you don't have one. The next few questions are just to do with your name, and if you've had any previous names, you're going to have to put those down as well. And the next few questions are some personal details, just what is your date of birth and what sex do you identify as. After that, they're going to want to know if you have a spouse, because they kind of link them together for tax purposes. Particularly if you're a resident, because then some things will qualify as a whole house earnings or expenditure. Now the next section after that is the section where you can't apply for a tax file number if you don't already live in Australia, or at least have an address in Australia, because they're going to want to know your address. Now this one you can just put wherever you're currently living in the first place, even if it's something temporary like an Airbnb. Don't know if you can put a hotel, but I wouldn't really try. Or once you've secured a rental, you could even put that down. Now the address can change, you can update it, but you can't apply for a tax file number in the first place unless you have somewhere where you're kind of going to live. If you've got friends or family that you're going to stay with in the first place, that could also work as well. The next question is going to do with your residency status, and if you're on a working holiday visa, then you're not going to remain a resident. You're also going to have to give your contact details like your mobile phone, and then one of the last questions they're going to ask you is whether you've got a registered tax agent. You don't have to use a tax agent when filling out your tax return. The form is actually pretty easy. But if you do use a tax agent, they might be able to save you a few bucks, because they'll know some things that you might be able to qualify for to help reduce your overall tax bracket. Lastly, you're going to have to provide some supporting evidence to prove who you are. It's not that simple that you can just fill in a form, unfortunately. Primary documents that are going to work for you if you're coming from abroad is probably your foreign passport. Now for secondary documents, you might also have some of these already, or at least you might be applying for them soon. These could be things like a Medicare card, there could be a bank statement from your Australian bank account, you could have some student identification from an Australian university, or you could have your Australian driver license. Again, a lot of those things are probably ones that you're going to have to apply for once you first get to Australia. Once you've added all of those supporting documents, all you need to do is fill in the declaration, and then Bob's your uncle. You should get a tax file number pretty much straight away. Give it to your employer, and then at least you won't have to pay so much tax. You still have to pay some. It's a tax file number, not a tax-free number. If that video has helped you out and you want some more tips for moving to Australia and what to do when you first get here, then you might want to watch this video too. We're all about helping out. See you later.